Calgary Police Service has made new information available to citizens on how concerns and complaints about officer conduct are handled. New web pages explaining the process the service follows when citizens report a concern have been added to calgarypolice.ca. Citizens can learn about the laws that govern police conduct and the process for investigating police complaints and concerns. Two new reports are also available on the web pages: an annual report providing statistical information on how many times citizens call with concerns or complaints, and a formal complaint outcomes report on how the service or professional conduct hearing addressed the complaint if it could not be resolved informally. The goal of releasing these documents is to provide the public with greater transparency regarding the police complaint process and outcomes. Around 92% of the over 1,300 concerns and complaints that we received last year were successfully resolved informally through an explanation of police procedures, an informal conversation between the involved parties, or with the officer supervisor addressing the concern. Only 79 matters could not be resolved informally, resulting in a formal investigation. This is down from a 5-year high of 95 formal investigations in 2014. Only 5 matters investigated in 2016 required a professional conduct hearing. The service also received, on average, 12 compliments each week that commended officers for going above and beyond their duties. As a part of the ongoing commitment to transparency and openness, the service recently supported the recommendations made by the Alberta Association of Chiefs of Police, asking the province to begin a process to modernize the public complaints process in Alberta. The AACP has recommended broad-based public consultations on a variety of issues, including the viability and desirability of a fully independent, civilian-led body to investigate complaints about police officer conduct. Additionally, the association suggested the process for investigating concerns and complaints needs to be shortened and streamlined so that presiding officers in charge of professional conduct hearings should be appointed by the province instead of the Chief of Police. Thanks very much, and look forward to taking your questions.
What are some of the common comments that people make, the concerns that they have?
I think the most common concern that we get from the public is around civility, whether the officer was patient enough or listened carefully, and demonstrated to them that they were interested in their complaint and concern. That's probably the most frequent complaint.
What are those more serious ones that lead to investigations?
More serious ones that have led to hearings include matters that, there's in a few cases, matters have resulted in criminal charges, and when those matters are through the courts, then they end up in a service hearing where they are looked at again, and members can be disciplined for their conduct internally on that. Other matters that have gone to hearing would include accessing, for example, information in the police record system for personal reasons and not for business reasons, and so those are 2 examples.
How long has this been in making?
We've been working on updating our website starting this last 6 or 8 months or so. On review of the website, it was just out of date. There wasn't a great deal of information there that explained to the public how the complaints process worked, the steps that were required to be taken under the Police Act, how a complainant might contact us. For example, one of the changes that were made over the last several years, which have increased the accessibility of the public to the complaint system, is an online web-based complaint form. And so these things are all set out on our website, and again, the purpose is to have greater transparency and to have the public have more accessibility to the system.
How do you think this will impact the number of complaints that you might get?
The number of complaints could in fact go up when you make yourself more accessible. At the same time, it's important for us to know where we're falling down so that we can address it. In a great number of cases, about 95.5% of the calls that we attend, the public is satisfied with our service. It's only in that small proportion that they call us with a concern or a complaint.
What are the rules for making a complaint for a citizen? Is there a limit on how long after an incident occurs that they can do that? And is that different for a police officer versus if you're making a complaint about Joe's citizen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things at play there. If it's a criminal matter, there's no statute of limitations on a criminal complaint. And so a citizen could complain a year or 2 years or 5 years after it doesn't matter. And that has to be investigated. Other complaints are about officer conduct, or whether or not their conduct was professional or not. In those cases, the citizen has a year to lay a complaint, unless, of course, they didn't know about the officer conduct, if they discovered it later. And if they did discover it after the 1 year period, then the time begins anew, and they have another year to make a complaint.
Or if originally they were making a complaint about behavior and then believed that the actions were criminal in nature, is it a different report?
Making a criminal allegation always opens up the time to run again, so there is no limitation on making a criminal complaint.
How often are you getting complaints from maybe the public doesn't know or understand it, or maybe you haven't taken control of the situation? Sometimes you know, they feel that maybe they're too forceful and that kind of stuff. Is that something where you talked about procedures before? Is that something maybe people understand better after you explain it?
That's exactly the kind of situation that happens. The public will call and say, well, you know, I had an interaction with an officer today. They ended up towing my car. That's really unfair. I needed to get to work. I did forget to put to register the car, so, why did the officer tow it? These are the kinds of things that we'll most often resolve informally. But even in a situation like that, the citizen can say, well, no, that I'm just not satisfied, and press that onto a formal complaint, and then we'd have to go through the full formal process to deal with it.
Or maybe even somebody might see an arrest taking place and think, oh, they're using way too much force, I'm going to call them.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you just talk a bit about the public body that would oversee this process? Is that something that you would...
Yeah. The complaints process, although in Alberta the police agencies are required to have their own complaint process, we also have oversight over that process. Any file that we have within our system, the public complaint director who works with the Calgary Police Commission has access to that complaint, can monitor it and review it. The Police Commission also has sort of general oversight over how the system's working, what the different outcomes were, whether or not they should be giving extensions to the complaint investigation. And then provincially, there's a provincial complaint monitor. So there are quite a few different layers. In some cases, the citizens can appeal the matter to the Law Enforcement Review Board, but that's restricted to those matters that actually go to a hearing.
But what would a citizen-only body that they're recommending by the chiefs, what would that do?
As I was saying before, Ontario has just gone through a public consultation process throughout Ontario, leading to the publication of a report in April this year by Justice Tulloch of the Ontario Court of Appeal. And in their deliberations, Justice Tulloch is recommending that police complaints, general complaints about conduct, be investigated by a civilian-led body that's independent from the police. There is no jurisdiction in Canada that has that system right now, but in Ontario it's being proposed. And Alberta chiefs think that's also important for us to be talking about here in Alberta. Is it a step that we should be considering or taking? And we're encouraging the province to, engage the public in stakeholder consultations and have that dialogue.